Right, and now to discuss this critical topic that we're talking about with the vaccines on RFK is Dr. Amish Adalja, senior scholar at the Johns Hopkins Center for Health Security. Doctor, thanks so much for coming on. And now, as we know, the polio vaccine has been administered since the 1950s, essentially eradicated the virus. There is no cure for polio, to be clear about this, and the vaccine is still recommended by the CDC. So how important is this vaccine, in your opinion? Let's make that clear as we're having this discussion.
Polio vaccine is one of the critical vaccines that are part of the routine childhood immunization and has been so since the 1950s. And while we've pushed polio to the brink of eradication, it is not yet eradicated. And we also have the threat of certain mutated strains of the Sabin vaccine that are causing cases, including in New York State a couple of years ago. So this is something that is one of our most tried and true and valuable vaccines. And to go after this vaccine, to me, really speaks of nihilism. It speaks to an inability to understand what the burden of polio was and is still in certain parts of the world.
Well, let me be clear. This petition that is kind of challenging it says that the clinical trials that were done to approve the current vaccine, they are not sufficient to ensure the safety and that the vaccine doesn't prevent polio transmission. What is your response to that?
Well, none of the Salk vaccines prevent polio transmission. That's how they were designed. They are meant to prevent what's called paralytic poliomyelitis, when polio, the virus, destroys your spinal cord. So we've always known that the Salk vaccine doesn't prevent infection. Again, that's not what it was meant to do. And there's no safety signal. The current vaccine is basically a version of the Salk vaccine that's been around since the 1950s. There's been no safety signal with this vaccine, and this vaccine is very similar to all the other polio vaccines prior to it, the one that they've specifically targeted in that petition. But this is just kind of a trial balloon to see, can they get people to doubt the polio vaccine? Can they gum up the works and cause problems for vaccine manufacturers? That's basically what this is, and it's foolish. And what it's doing is just creating more vaccine hesitancy and allowing polio to take advantage of this if it were to. So this to me just makes no sense. It's kind of hard to kind of delve into the irrationality of this and understand what their motivations are, because to anybody with open eyes, the polio vaccine is one of the greatest success stories of human technology.
Now, to be clear, President-elect Donald Trump, he has praised the polio vaccine, but then at the same time, you're having his pick, RFK, having these ties to this lawyer who's petitioning to revoke it. But it seems that Donald Trump has also had an openness to talk about vaccines when it comes with respect to children. So what are your greatest concerns with the incoming administration about when we talk about vaccines, and particularly vaccines with children?
My greatest concern is that they make it very hard to be a vaccine manufacturer in the next administration, meaning that they try and stifle innovation. They make regulatory approvals more onerous. They stack advisory committees against the vaccine companies. And then vaccine companies will say, why should we even do this anymore? It's not very profitable to begin with. And now all it is a headache and lawsuits and lots of bickering and character assassination that goes on. I think that's what happens is vaccine manufacturers decide this isn't a market we want to be in anymore because it's not a hospitable environment. And then we have less innovation, less vaccines. And at the same time, the anti-vaccine movement has their biggest spokespeople in positions of power wielding government force. And that gives them the ability to kind of change policies at the school district level, at the state level. And then we start to see certain diseases that we had control of, we start to lose control of.
That's a nightmare scenario, what you just outlined. I guess the question is, the FDA, I understand, is reviewing this petition. I mean, what could come from that? Are we really talking about, just to put a bow on this, are we really talking about these vaccines being eradicated completely?
I don't think it's going to be easy to have FDA approval revoked for safe and effective vaccines. That petition has no biological merit. It's scientifically meaningless to me, and hopefully the FDA will just throw it in the trash. They may have to review it for statutory reasons and respond to it, but it doesn't seem to me that it's going to have any merit, and it's not going to be something that would push the hand of any rational person at the FDA that was reviewing it.
All right. Listen, Dr. Amish Adalja, thanks so much for coming on, giving your opinion about this, and we'll see where it goes. Really appreciate it.